Try to silence my phone.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks Andy for putting this together and getting us ready to go. What we're going to talk about tonight is a AXCC webinar series, and we've titled it Basic AiM Data Information. And we're just going to go over some basic stuff, but probably a little bit less than an hour. Going to jump in and do just a quick overview of data acquisition, and then jump into some other things. So let's jump off of this slide and run into the first one. Just a quick agenda of kind of where we're going to go. We're going to do a quick introductions of the co-panelists here, some introductions, and then we're going to talk about what is data acquisition, why would you use it, and how would you use it, and then under the how is where we really get into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to show you some things that talk about how we kind of break the thought process down of this, and three of them are driver things that you really want to study when you're doing data work. Is they all fit into one of these categories, either driver performance, vehicle performance, or vehicle health. And we're going to use some real data, UTV data, where we're actually going to look at some driver performance items, basically comparing multiple laps, doing some predictive lap timing. Andy mentioned to me that was something that he wanted to, some people had asked to make sure we showed. So predictive lap timing, not only in the car while you're driving and kind of what that looks like, as well as then what we call time compare, which is kind of showing the difference in lap timing between a couple of different laps. And then a split report, just some different ways to use the tool to make the driver better. And then on the vehicle performance side, we're going to talk about some things, and the one of them that was the biggest one that I seen in the data that I had is maybe some tire spin, just to show that there was a lot of deep data in there. So I'll be able to show you some tire spin. And then under vehicle health, which is an important part of how a lot of people use these devices, is making sure that you finish the race and making sure how things are, how healthy the vehicle is. So we're going to talk about some channels report and look into different ways of using that tool and understanding how your car is doing. Belt temperatures, an important one in this business, and then alarms, that we can set for vehicle health. So when certain things get to a certain spot, we can see those and be aware. And then of course the one that one of the ones that we wanted to talk about also here is using these devices for technical compliance. So we're going to look at some data and show what the officials will be looking at and as far as straying off course and some other things. Then we'll have a couple of slides just on additional training and support, and then that's available to everybody that's watching this or later on when it's taped. And then also some questions and answers at the end. You have a question and answer box. If you go to your on your screen, everybody's watching. If you watching live, there's a little panel there that says it has a Q&A, and you can go in there and you can start typing in some questions, and that we'll answer some of those at the end if there are any. Okay. So with that, let's jump into the first slide. But first, I want to just have Andy maybe talk a little bit about anything he wants to add to this before we get started. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody that's taken the time to get on here and learn. I think that really shows the guys that even if they think they know it or may even well know it, it's still the guys that are wanting to learn and get faster. So, but I want to thank all the guys that are on here, and I really want to thank AiM with Roger and Robinson. There's a lot more time that goes into this than what most people believe, so I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and it's new to our sport. Other sports like ours use this, but as Robinson found out last year, we learned a lot that first year with getting in the timber and stuff. And no matter what you do and moving forward, it's going to take a little bit of time to get it ironed out and stuff. So I just want to say I'm very proud to have you guys on board and to be able to use this. And I think it's just going to make it more and more professional. I think more people are going to jump on board and follow if we get this thing going. So thanks everybody for joining in.
Appreciate that. We're happy to be here with you too. Robinson, you want to add anything before we get going?
Oh, well, I'd just like to, I'm on here just to, show you my face. The lead sport technician with the AXCC last year. And again, this year I plan to be at every race. So just if you have questions, ask them. It's better to, that's why we have data, so we know. So if you have questions about us, we'd like you to ask, and I'll be at the races to help you live. Roger is someone you'll learn something from every time you talk to, and he's going to offer his help further if you have more in-depth questions. So feel free to use the Q&A live, and we'll have a little section at the end where we'll answer some of these questions. And then, of course, also his contact information will be available so that if you're watching this later, you can get a hold of him directly, him or myself. If you have general questions, I'll be happy to help. If you think it's something high level, Roger's going to be the man I'll take it to anyways. So feel free to reach out to him direct as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Robinson. We have a question already. Robinson, you can either take a look at that. We'll gather them all up at the end. You can even type in an answer if you wish. The video will be available. I've got the email that everybody signed up with, and what I'm also going to do is create this presentation into a PDF file, and then I'm going to email it out to everybody. So everybody will get a copy of this in the next day or so to the email address they provided. So. Okay, and if anybody was watching this taped on YouTube, roger@aimsports.com, contact information will be here on the last slide at the end of the presentation. Email me and I can get you a copy of this presentation as well. So, okay, let's start with what is data acquisition. So the first kind of question that a lot of people have is, okay, I got this, or I'm thinking about it. What does it do for me? And the short version of this is data equals knowledge, and knowledge equals speed. How fast do you want to go? That's kind of the catchphrase, right? And so it's so important in order to make good changes to your car, to the driver, to the car, and following along on the vehicle health thing. Boy, if you know the information and you know which direction to go, you're always improving. And the trouble with some of these things is you make a change, and if you kind of guess at it, then you went backwards a little bit. So data is a big help in that kind of a thing. So data equals knowledge, knowledge equals speed. That's kind of a catchphrase on what is data acquisition. The next one is why use it, and not just because everybody else uses it, although that that's there is some truth to that, but there is some real power in data. So kind of tying into that last one, why use data acquisition, and it really is to constantly improve. And the three things that we kind of chatted about a little bit earlier: driver performance, and vehicle health. And if we improve those three, we're going to improve results. And as it says across the bottom down there, with the proper and consistent use of data, your race program will improve. And that's there's just no doubt in that. Professional teams all around the world use this stuff to do these kind of things. And we're here to help you understand how to do it. And once you start to use it and start to understand it, it really helps you make good changes to your car and your driver. So the bigger one, though, for today is how do you use it? That's where we're going to spend most of our time. And this is just a quick little sheet that you can take a look at later that I follow when I do data analysis, and I found it to be true, because there's something about this where it's kind of our job to do the best we can. These data acquisition, data analysis is a fairly complex subject, right? There's a lot there, doing a lot of things, and we're providing a strong and powerful system. But what we're really after is working, how to make this as understandable and easy, and to understand this data as we can. And so this page is doing some of that. We're just giving you you're breaking it down into some steps that makes it a little bit easier and clearer to see. So the first one, basic data analysis steps. You should be always asking yourself these three questions as you're working in your data. What happened? And many stop there. Hey, I'm over on that hill or on the back straightaway, I was I'm 3 miles an hour slower than I was earlier. And so you look at that and you go, okay, well, I'll try a little harder. Well, I'm going to make the assumption that you're trying pretty hard already. So the what happened piece is important, and that's the first step. But the next two questions need to be, where did it happen? And we're talking about where, not just where on the track, but is it an uphill? Is it a corner? Is it a high speed straightaway? That is helping us understand how to answer the next question, which is, why did it happen? Why were you faster in that section or slower in that section? You really got to ask these three questions, and that why might be pretty deep. That why might be 3 or 4 questions. Yeah, I'm slower compared to my teammate. I've looked at data or some of the other things, and I'm always slower under braking, and Okay, well, okay, that's why I'm losing some time. But why are you slower under braking? Let's look at brake pressures, or let's look at some of these different things, and you keep asking yourself why until you get down to something that you can fix as the driver, or as on the car, on the vehicle performance side, or the driver performance side, vehicle health side. So make sure you ask yourself those 3 questions. And then the next one is something I always think of it this way: as the money channels. There really are 2 things that are really super critical to us, and they're lap times and their speed. Uh, you've got a bunch of other data channels that might be coming along with your MX UTV gauge, but those other channels support why the lap times went down or the speed went up, and which is really what's critical to us. So think of it about that way. If I show up at the racetrack, or you come in and we get online and we start looking at your data and answer some questions for you, what you'll find is I'll go to your computer screen and I'll just slowly be turning stuff off to get down to just a speed trace. We'll look at the speed traces, which we're going to do here in a little bit, and then I'll start to add other channels to understand why the difference in speed, or why it doesn't look like you're accelerating well or not braking well. We start to add other channels. All those other channels are strongly support those money channels, so they're super important. But focus on those lap times and speed. That's where you kind of find the spot where you start digging in, okay, and not be overwhelmed by too much data. And then the last one, I've talked about it a little bit already, but driver performance, and vehicle health. I call it the data analysis triangle. I've put in parentheses there what we're actually going to look at in some quick screen captures here the rest of our hour. We're going to look at time compare a little bit, predictive lap timing, and split reports on ways that we can help the driver perform better. Vehicle performance, I just use one of them, just some tire spin. We've got some vehicle speed, tire speeds versus GPS speeds. I want to show that and just give you an idea what you can kind of look for. And then vehicle health, a big part of this in UTV racing, off-road racing is boy, we got it's hard on these pieces of equipment, so we need to be looking at some things. And I'm going to show you an example of a channels report, some belt temperature data analysis, and then how to set up the gauge so you get the alarms where if the belt temps get too high or the water temp gets too high or whatever it happens to be. So we'll talk about that and show you the power of that as well. So, okay, let's jump to the next slide. And the driver performance, the first one we're going to talk about. I wanted to show this one pretty quickly. It's kind of goes into Andy's question of that predictive lap timing that you're seeing in the car while you're running. Well, we can also see that in the data analysis after we get done. Here's a screen, Race Studio 2 analysis here in the upper part of the screen. All of these slides, when I email you a copy of the presentation, all the slides from now on are set up in this way for the most part when we're actually looking at data. I've got the screen of Race Studio 2 with whatever we're trying to show, what we're going to talk about, and then all over the screen you see these little red boxes up in the upper left-hand corner, and a red box over this. With your own data down the road, you should be able to, by looking at this screen and reading the paragraph that's down here below, and then I have highlighted the icons that turn on the options that we're looking at. So we're looking at a measures graph over here and a GPS graph here. That's how you turn on those 2 functions. I'm telling you which channels to have turned on, and then I've highlighted the area that we're going to discuss for the most part in this on this slide. And then down here below we have tabs across the bottom as it shows all the different functions. I'm even showing you which tabs, which functions we have up on the screen. So hopefully down the road when you get your own data and you start to go back and review this, you can set up your own screen the same way. If you have any trouble, give me a holler and I'll help you out, me or Robinson. So okay, this first one I want to talk about is kind of focusing on this time compare bar. I've got 2 laps active. I've got lap 2 over here, which is a light blue, and lap 6, which is a yellow. And then I've drawn a box around here. When you open up 2 laps, and I've got a speed trace up on top for each one. When we open up a second lap, the Race Studio 2 analysis automatically puts this time compare bar across the bottom. What we're looking at here is the flat line is always the fastest of the 2 laps. If we go up here to the upper left-hand corner, we can see that lap 2 is a 3 minutes 33 seconds 0.209, and the yellow lap is a 3 minutes 33 seconds 0.453. So about 2/10 slower. So the lap times are very, very close, obviously. But what we see down here is a great way of picking up on where you should start to look into your data. So the flat line being the faster of the 2 laps. If the yellow line is above it, it's slower at that part of the track. it dips below it, like here, the yellow lap was faster. It's cumulative, so it's like those ghosting racing video games. You can it's cumulative. So everywhere this thing crosses the line, right there where I've got the highlighter, the two cars are exactly at the same spot on the track at the same time. So it's cumulative. So and you can see here by the scaling that it's it's almost a second, 0.8 of a second up here at the top and about 0.8 of a second at the bottom. So at the point where I've got the cursor right here, we can see over here across the right hand side 0.873 that the yellow lap was slower at the most slow during the comparing of these two laps. Right there, the driver was 0.873 behind the blue lap, and the big gain was right here. Wherever it's steep in either direction, that's the largest gain. So right here, the yellow one was losing quite a bit of time, and if we go straight up, you can see that the yellow one is quite a bit slower in that little section. If we wanted to determine what it was, we would zoom in and add more channels to the money channel of just speed to figure out why, right? Right now, we're just looking at the comparison tool. And then the yellow one was faster for a pretty good chunk that's trending down. When it crosses over here, that they're virtually tied on time. And then down here, about 0.8 of a second faster at this one spot on the yellow. So there's a swing of almost 1.6 seconds of this lap, even though the lap times were virtually the same within a couple of tenths. So this time compare bar really helps you understand where was I faster during the lap, where was I slower, and not just at the end of the lap looking down and seeing what your lap time was or looking at the timing sheets. You can see here where against your teammate or your own laps or you in qualifying versus the racer, however you want to compare data. We can see this pretty quickly. So that's the time compare bar, and I wanted to show that to everybody and have you take a look at that. It's pretty it's a very, very powerful tool in the software. Okay. The next way that I would look almost at the same thing is what the driver will see while they're out driving in the UTV. You've got the gauge here, and across the top of the MX UTV and the Solo DL and other products as well of ours, but across the top here you've got these 5 LEDs, and those 5 LEDs can be set up to be predictive lap timing while you're driving. You also have a place here where if you want it set up this way, you can actually have it be reading plus and minus to your best lap in memory. So if that's something that interests you, you have the option of setting it up on the gauge while you're even driving. And then these lights, they sweep across, green being faster as it goes across, and slower. If you're slower than your best lap in memory, it's going to be a red sweep compared to your best lap in memory. So kind of an interesting thing, and some drivers like it, some drivers don't. So you can turn it on, turn it off. But if you like that, boy, you have that option on the UTV. And the way that works is it's taking that GPS information that's coming out of the GPS sensor that's built in, and it's comparing your lap position, where you're at on the track, versus the time it took you to get there. And then it's doing the math real quickly and telling you, hey, are you ahead or behind? And it's doing that every 30 meters or so, right? So every 100 feet or so, it's doing this math for you as you're running around the track. So 100 feet goes by real quickly at speed. So it's virtually doing it as fast as you can see it. So it's pretty cool. Those same LED lights up on top, it's kind of showing both here, but those same lights can also be configured for RPM gear shift lights. If you have a car that you want to add shift lights to, you can have them be a shift light instead of the predictive lap timing. So a very powerful tool, and something that a lot of people like to use. I wanted to make sure you've seen that here. Okay. Another thing as part of that driver performance thing is we're getting a little bit deeper now. We've got a track map that we have built into a segmented track map, and then we're using this function called the split report. And there's the icon is right up here, circled up there, and then I've broken this track into 5 segments. And the start finish line on this particular track was right here. So then you've got segment 1, and then segment 2 is this blue one. Segment 3 is this colorized green, and then the 4th segment, and then the 5th segment. Got them numbered in a different way, but you get the idea. And then what we do is we take the entire run that you just had, those, in this case, it was 6 laps. And then we take, the the segment that we've created with a track map, and we break this thing down and tell you exactly how much time you were in that segment for each of your laps. So the best one is highlighted blue, so 32.659, and then all the rest of the laps, and you can tell this driver was it was getting a little bit slower as it went. The last couple laps were in the 33s, but down in this green section for section 1, you can see that it shows us the minimum value, the maximum value, and the average for your 6 laps. And then a mathematical standard deviation. Smaller is better. The smaller you get, the more consistent you are. Now, we're in 30 seconds there. Those are pretty good standard deviation numbers. So just a great way for you as a driver, when you get back, you can actually take your data, and with this map that we can create real quickly, I'm not going to go into that today. We got lots of videos that talk about it, or you can give me a holler. We can create this track map, split it up the way we want to, and then get a report out for each segment of how much time we spent. Of course, it's reporting here the actual lap times from start finish to start finish down here where this little marker is, and that's what you've seen on your gauge while you were driving, if you had it set up with start finish line coordinates into it. And then what it does, kind of a cool little thing, it takes our predictive, our blue fastest segment times, the highlighted blue ones, and it puts them together in what we call the theoretical best lap. So in this case, the highlighted red one's the fastest driver's actual lap, which was a 3:33.209. And the predictive best lap, if we were to take his fastest segments and stitch them together, he would have turned a 3:31.78. So a pretty good little chunk of difference there. So it gives you kind of something to shoot for if you were to stitch it all together really well. And then the third thing, which is pretty interesting here, is what we call the best rolling lap. And that's this highlighted yellow part. These lap times, as I just mentioned, they come from the start finish to start finish. And then but the best rolling lap actually starts, in this particular case, in this example, starts at the beginning of this second red segment. So right here, if you were to have taken a stopwatch and timed from that spot right there on the map, around the track, right past the start finish line, and then back to this point, he actually drove a 3:32.45. It just happens to not have been from start finish to start finish. So this report is giving us 3 different ways of looking at your lap times: start finish to start finish, just like would be on the official timing sheets, and of course on your Micron while you're driving. And then, pardon me, and then the theoretical best lap where we stitch them together, and then your best rolling lap where it was from any point on the track, being any end of a segment, back to that same spot again. So a very, very powerful tool. A lot of people just love the split reports. It allows them to look at segments. You may know that track, and there's one area that's really fast, and there's another section that's hilly and rolly, and you might want to, you've got your car set up for one way or the other. You can see how you compare against teammates or anybody else that you're comparing data, or against yourself during qualifying versus the race, and see where you've improved or not. So split reports, another very powerful tool for the driver performance side. Okay, let's talk a little bit about vehicle performance. I just got that one slide that we were going to chat about, and it was it's tire spin. It's just an interesting way of looking at it. There could be, there's a bunch of other things we can do, obviously, for vehicle performance, but this particular ECU that we're connected to has a vehicle speed. Vehicle speed, you can think of it as tire speed as well if you wish for this particular example. And then it's also got, of course, GPS speed, or the actual speed of the vehicle across the track. And so I've put those 2 values right on top of each other up here in the top of my analysis screen. Pardon me. And then down here below, and you don't need to do this, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, but I also did a quick math channel. Anybody wants to get into that, give me a holler, and we'll talk about how to do these. But a math channel inside of our software, it's this little icon right here. But all this math channel did was it took where we subtract the GPS speed, which is this green line. Let's do it right here where the cursor is, where I took this green GPS speed value, which is 38.6 up here, you see that. And then I also, where it crosses the vehicle wheel speed, was 49.3. So the difference, the tire slip or the tire spin at that particular spot is 10.7 miles per hour. And just kind of a cool little tool that you can, you don't need the math channel. You can just do the math real quickly between these two and you get the same number. But kind of a cool thing. You can see exactly where when the driver's on the throttle hard, you can see how much the tire's spinning. You can see how much it's locking up, and the tires are slowing down more than the vehicle speed. Something you can, for chassis stuff, and certainly tire selection and grooving, or whatever you do on that side for grip and acceleration rates that way. Just another quick way of looking at the data. I've got this other box right here that I've highlighted around, where it's kind of an interesting one, where there's a big spike in the wheel speed, the tire speed, and you can see the same spike down here in the tire spin channel. And I don't know the data intimately here, but it sure looks like if you look at the where these have all popped up here, there's another one right here. They're where the driver has gotten after it is probably in the air a little bit and didn't get off the throttle when the car got light, or there was a muddy spot or something. But my guess is that more didn't get out of the throttle real quickly. That way there's a third one right over here you can kind of see. Just kind of stuff kind of interesting to pick up, and then and maybe help tune the driver or the vehicle at that point. So kind of interesting stuff. Okay. The next set of data that I'd like to go through is some stuff on the vehicle health side, and just to pick up on some stuff that you can look at your data on. That all, of course, depends on the channels that you've got coming into your data logger. But here's the channel report button, the icon to bring it up, and then this is user definable. You see the add remove button over here. You can also add remove right here on this icon. But I've set this one up just with a few channels that were in this data file. I've got GPS speed, and I've got the maximum GPS speed, RPM, the maximum RPM, and this is the highest value for this entire lap, right? We can do this in segments if we wanted to, based on those same segments that I showed you on that track map we built a minute ago. But in this case, we're just showing the highest value for the lap. Highest boost pressures, average belt temperature, one we might concentrate here on a second. Max belt temperatures for this lap. We could do all sorts of different things. Here's max water temperature, minimum and maximum air intake temperatures, and battery voltage. So I've got a minimum, average, and maximum. You get to put up whatever you wish. Let's kind of study these two here, the belt temperature and the voltage. We can look at this belt temperature, and our max temperature for the first lap was a 184. Then the highlighted one there, it's colorized blue a little bit. 190 was the max, and then the belt temperature pretty much stabilized, if not dropping a single degree as it was going down. But that's the peaks, and then this one here was the average for the entire lap. That 3 minutes and 30 seconds for each lap. We've created this real quickly to give you an average temperature for your belt temperature. So kind of cool stuff. It gives you a quick look without even having to go into some of the squiggly lines, and in the analysis program you can just click on this button and have this set up and take a look at these things really quickly. What your max water temperature, max RPM, see if you've overdone something. The one that is kind of interesting, I just saw in the data, external voltage, the power to the gauge, which is the power to the car, obviously. In this case, it's kind of interesting that the minimum volts sitting up here, and then about halfway through the race, it starts losing a little less than a tenth. I mean, it's not very much, but it's just you can kind of see the trend. So I wanted to point it out. Maybe the alternator's not quite big enough for this. It's going to slowly lose voltage. If it was a real long race, maybe it continues down. I do not know, right? Something just caught my eye that you should be able to catch yourself real quickly in the channels report. You can see that's down to 12.94. The lowest minimum voltage it was on the last lap. So something you might want to check at some point. The averages are holding pretty true, so it may not be a big deal. And then the maxes are moving around a bit. So vehicle health, that channel report is just a very, very quick and cool way to jump in, and within, gosh, a minute or two after downloading data, you should have the basics of all your vehicle health, the things that are important to you that you got data on. Very, very quick tool. Okay. Here's another one. Now we're going to go in the graphic side and look at, pretty busy screen, right? We'll zoom in here on a chunk here in just a second. But this screen happens to be, I've got the GPS map here over on the side by itself. So we can kind of see right here, you can see the X's right here. That's where, and I've got two laps open, lap 7 and lap 5 in this particular case. You can see those icons there. It shows where the cursor's at. These two are dynamically linked all the time. And then all of the different channel values are down here for the two different laps. I've got 4 channels turned on. GPS speed, RPM, belt temperature, and throttle position. And because I've seen a change in belt temperature here really quickly, so I wanted to throw a couple of channels up there that might help us understand what was doing that. So I've got those up. Of course, our time compare bar we looked at a little bit ago, kind of interesting. And so let's zoom in on this screen just to see this area a little bit closer. You can see the yellow belt temperature. Just a quick glance with your eye shows that, boy, they're right on top of each other for almost 2 minutes probably here of these two laps, right? They're 3.5 minute laps. And then all of a sudden, right about here, you can see the well, probably right in here, the yellow starts to separate. And boy, your eye should catch that pretty quickly, right? And okay, I see that. Let's zoom in on that area just a little bit more, and let's see if we can start to see some trends in here. So I've just zoomed in on that area a little bit. Now we're only looking at this part of the track. Still got all those same channels up. And it's kind of interesting. You can see that here we got a speed trace up here in the top, and the driver got way slowed down for whatever reason. I didn't look into the data deeply, but you can see the RPM drops way down, and the driver was on the throttle hard and early. Maybe it was an uphill or something there. But boy, all of a sudden you start to get the separation of the belt temperature. And you can actually see it's actually under braking, and I understand that belt temperatures can increase under braking as well. So it must have probably really on the brakes hard here, and it actually created some temperature, started the issue, and then got on the throttle earlier, blipped it hard, and then it was on the yellow one here you see was up earlier. We're talking across the bottom. If you look, this is 200-foot increments on these grids. So if you're looking at this, that's what, probably 80, 90 feet that was on the throttle earlier. It's building additional heat into the belt. And then all the rest of the way kind of catches up a little bit, but then separates even more in this area. And you can kind of see that the driver was on the throttle pedal quite a bit more through this little area here as well, where it was creating some more heat. I don't understand all the whys yet, but I just wanted to show you some stuff that you can look at pretty quickly. And by having the right channels, you can kind of put this together and start to begin to understand why this temperature climbed. Now it's not a ton, it's only 3 or 4 degrees hotter, but wanted to show you a little bit of kind of what that looks like. And if you want to build something like this in your own data, again, it's turn on these 4 channels. You got the measures graph and a GPS, and of course these are the 2 tabs we've got that we have open here side by side. And that, by the way, the side-by-side thing not confuses, but some people like to do that and don't know how to do that. It's if you click on these restore up and down commands on the inside this main window, not the ones that close the entire program up here, but the ones that are a little bit lower. When you restore down, then you can resize any open windows you happen to have them side by side by using your mouse and grabbing the corners here and just resize them. So that's kind of an interesting way, so you can see not only your data, but where you're at on the track at the same time, side by side. Pretty handy tool. Okay. So the next thing I thought we would look at is we've got while you're out there on the track driving, you have the ability with the MX UTV with the belt temperature sensor, is we've got a couple of lights here. So you have to keep your eye on those belt temperatures, I understand, and of course we have the ability to put that right here on the gauge. But what's even more so is you need to set your gauge up and have them where these lights will come on when the temperature gets up to a spot that you care about. So you're not having to focus on that gauge. You're actually able to drive the car and do what you need to do. But then when those lights come on, that triggers you to start looking down and making sure and doing what you need to do to either hold those or get the temperatures down when you need to. So kind of a very cool thing. Those lights can be used for any other device. If you don't have belt temperature, obviously you might have oil pressure, you might have oil temperature. Those lights can then be assigned to that as well.
Joe's chipping in here. He said he's seen belt temperature and mile per hour correspond in the desert, higher speed, higher temps.
I bet that's what I understand from hearing some of the folks talk about. Steve, I just glanced over and seen your note. I'm going to actually show you export into Google Earth here in a moment. Race Studio 3 will have that natively built in, where your maps will have Google Earth natively behind it. Right now, we do have to export out. You probably know that, but I am going to show what that looks like now, and then new versions of Race Studio 3 analysis, when they are released, will have that in the background, real time. So pretty cool that these lights can be set up and all ready to go. So let's move on to the next one. The next one I wanted to talk about, this one was, Andy suggested we take a look at it, and a lot of people had suggested to him that they'd like to see what this kind of looks like. So I just grabbed this same data and showed it how the technical compliance folks, the technical inspectors, will be, when they download the data, what they're seeing if you haven't done this and taken a look at it. So let's take a look at what that might look like first in Race Studio, and then we'll take a look at it what it looks like in Google Earth. So this is the GPS map. Now what I've done here is I've just I've maximized just the GPS tab. I don't have the squiggly lines or the analysis screen, the measures graph here alongside of it. So I brought up the six laps on top of each other on the GPS driven line map here, so we can just kind of take a look at it. We're not going to show any, but any data where somebody has short course the track. So, but we're gonna zoom in a little bit, and you can kind of see how accurate this tends to be, and what the officials and we'll talk about more of your use of this as well as racers as well. So, this is the whole track. The full three and a half minutes worth of and 6 laps worth of the laps, and you can see pretty quickly, you can start to see that there's one lap there that the driver cut down towards the middle of the corner. They pop out at you pretty quickly. Here's one where the driver went straight down through this little area. There's one over here where the red line is ran down the right edge of the track instead of the outside where he had been normally driving. So your eye can pick up on this pretty quickly, and that's how the officials are going to do it. They're going to bring this up, look at it really quickly, and see if somebody went straight across here. Right? It's going to be very, very clear. So that's the first fully zoomed out. It's looking at the entire track. Let's look at it if we break it, do the data export and bring it into Google Earth. This is what it would look like when we're still zoomed quite a ways out. But now we can start to see the trail or the track layout, or certainly where they drove, even if the older imagery didn't have a track there, like in some of the spots here. So this is what it would look like if we looked at it in Google Earth after an export. The next screen, I've started to zoom in just a little bit inside of Race Studio here, and this is what they'll be looking at as well. Boy, you can see there's a couple spots here where on the red lap, the driver cut through the edge. I mean, still legal and everything, obviously, but just trying to give you an idea of kind of what it looks like here. You can see that that's fairly easy to see where the difference is. Got a scale bar down here along the bottom that if you zoom in enough, we can certainly get these numbers where you could even understand the distance, how wide the track layout was, and I'll show you that here in a second. Let's take that exact same segment from Race Studio, export it out into Google Earth. This is what that same exact piece looks like. This is where that one red line was a little bit tighter, and this is where he came off that corner, went a nice tight line down instead of freeing up the car and heading down that straightaway. So giving you an idea of kind of what it looks like, and you can see even some of these other areas, if you're using it for race purposes, boy, you can kind of tell that this white line here went really tight on it, and then you could look at the data and see, boy, did that hurt his speed, or was freeing it up, did that really help, or taking that different side of the track or that different line up that steep hill out in the desert or something, which was quicker. We can look at it pretty easily in the software. And then I zoomed all the way in onto one of them, just so you can kind of get an idea. So, boy, you can see that there's the red line went pretty tight on the exit here and headed up the hill. And let's look at that in Google Earth with a little bit more information about what we're talking about here. I was able to measure this, and there's about 25 feet between that orange line at the widest spot and that red driven line here, about 25 feet. And you're going to see this pretty consistently. I mean, you get into the trees and stuff, some of it starts to get a little bit of noise, but even with a little bit of noise and movement of that track, we can see within a decent enough distance to see if somebody's really cut this course, right? So it's but boy, out in the open air, it's pretty darn good. Over here on the bulleted items, the AXCC will quickly be able to accurately determine the differences in the racers' driven lines. Not specific small little things for speed, but if you've cut the course. The AiM MX UTV has a very powerful built-in what we call a GPS 08 module. It uses not only the GPS satellites, but also the GLONASS Russian satellites. And and then it's placing your position out there 10 times per second, so that it does it pretty good, and it's using an average of about 20 satellites as it's doing this. So there's keeping pretty good track of where you've gone, and it's powerful for you as well. Obviously, officials can quickly determine if there were any course deviations. In this, as I mentioned here, 6 feet or 25 feet or so was what this maximum difference is here. So pretty clear that the one red line was quite a bit different line.
And Roger,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to point out something too, to make sure everybody understands. One of those colors would be actually what we run before the race even starts. So that's the designated line, and then the rest would be, per whatever color it is. I think correct, right? Robinson
Yeah, exactly.
would be theirs. So
yeah. You guys provide us a direct reference lap, so that compounds onto the additional 10, 20 cars that we'll have in this lineup this year to combine to the accuracy of the actual race course that you guys have set up.
Yep. And I just want to make sure on that they understood that the feet that we're measuring isn't between their lines, it's between what our line was and theirs. So yeah,
perfect.
And quick, I would say, is relative in our situation, just because we're downloading so many vehicles and the races are so long that there's just a whole lot of data at once. So getting it together and accurately analyzed is something that we don't want to shortchange you on by just giving you a 5-minute look at everybody. Certainly, if you know of somewhere to look at that will help us better the analysis, feel free to chime it in to Andy or I. It does help in looking into things. But of course, with as many vehicles as we'll have this year, we'll be looking at a little bit of time to take a look into everyone.
Perfect. Okay, that's more detail on how you handle it, which is perfect for everybody here. And as I mentioned here, this is also a very valuable tool for the racer, right? It just because they're taking the data and looking for that, boy, that driven line where you've gone and maybe you've tried some different things, or you have some teammates you can share data with, and you've tried within the realm of obviously what's being legal. It's great to know if freeing it up out here, or if driving up the middle of that particular section was better. Yeah, certainly the data analysis from that can become very handy for obviously for speed and for lap time improvement. So very cool. Okay, a couple things as we're kind of closing this up and heading towards the question and answers. Keep on putting them in there, and Robinson will start that off. I'll read up on some of them too. Some of them look pretty technical and maybe better for Robinson. I'm a data analysis guy more than the hardware, right? Here's a little bit of how you can get some more help as you're using these pieces of hardware and running with them. If the AiM has we have a team of these track technicians that are just wonderful. They're very good at what they do, and they're out at the tracks almost every weekend, and at your events obviously, plus many more. And so these guys regularly attending these races and other events, and we've got a van at a lot of them, or backpacks full of stuff, and they're wandering around and taking care of and answering questions for you. So look for them at tracks near you. The customer support is pretty powerful and strong here at AiM. We do some on-site training. If I should have put the website on here, but if you go to aimsports.com and scroll down a little bit, there's a current list of all of our 2020 actual on-site seminars. If there's anything that's in your area, there's links on the website to just be able to click on it, be able to get a hold of download a flyer, and locations, dates, and times. And if there's anything close to you, come on out to the on-site data training. We do these. I think I'm on the road every weekend between now and June. Not all of them are on here, but wow. On the road literally every weekend doing seminars this time of year. So if there's something you might want to come in and sit down and learn these things on a deeper level, just let us know and come to one of these. And then the other thing we have is a YouTube page where we've got a little over 60 of these training videos up there, and the recording of this will be up there hopefully in the next few hours, by tomorrow morning certainly. I don't know how long it takes to render or load yet, but it's our first one of these. But there are a ton of videos out there if you're looking at how to change lap colors, or how to set up that screen like I talked about it with analysis on one side and the GPS map alongside of it. Those are built in here. Data views and channel reports, and how to set them up. Channel reports down here. How different data views, GPS lap insert. If you didn't get the GPS lap coordinates in, you can create the lap times later. Wi-Fi, how to set up all the Wi-Fi stuff. All sorts of videos. If I'm getting questions on it, or all my friends at AiM in the tech side, if they're getting a lot of questions, they send them to me, and they're on a whiteboard over here, and that's what I build the videos on when I have a few extra free minutes. So go check out the YouTube training site. That's where just tons and tons of information are for you. Okay. And kind of a summary of just what we've kind of chatted about a little bit before we get to the questions and answers. Add your questions now if you want them answered here really quickly. We'll get to them in just a minute or so. Data is powerful and valuable, as it says here in the first bulleted item, but you need to still understand and interpret that data correctly. This is like any other tool that you buy and use. If you buy it and set it on the shelf and you don't practice or learn about it, that tool is only so good. So you still need to understand and interpret that data correctly. It's very powerful, but you still have to do that. We have to look for trends. Whenever we do these seminars or these quick webinars like we're doing here today, I just showed you 2 laps, right? And then boom, you had belt temperature rising. You would really look for some more trends and see if it's always doing that one area. Was the one that was rising faster, was that the anomaly? And everything else was low, or was that one blue lap we looked at when it was low, or was that the difference, right? You have to look for trends. You can't just look at a chunk of a lap or just 2 laps against each other and say, there's my problem. Let's throw a bunch of effort at solving that. Make sure you look for some trends. It's really the right way to do this. There's not a button that says that tells you what shocks or springs to run or what to set the tire pressures at. I always joke that AiM tells me that they have that, but I keep begging them not to do that, or else I wouldn't have a job, right? So, but there is not, though, and so you need to really look at your data. You're still in charge of that data and understanding it and learning about it, and you still make the decisions, based on how you tune the car, how you tune the driver, how you use the thing to create better vehicle health. You just are doing it with much more full and accurate information when you have data like this. So there's that data is very powerful, and we're here to help you understand how to make it work for you. So the last one is, let's open this up for those questions, and maybe I'll slide it over to Robinson. I haven't even read them yet as I was busy here. Maybe Robinson, is there 1 or 2 there that you can handle why I start reading them, and see if there's any that I can answer?
Well, there's 2 that would go directly towards your direction. Joe Chapman, very good question. If you are racing and you have an instance where you need to kill the power to the vehicle, like a limp mode, maybe emergency, how would they, or are they able to merge 2 test files that it would create?
In Race Studio 3, we can bring those down, and when you download them, we can link those together, and there will be a pause, obviously, when the power was shut off and come back up, right? But even if it wasn't, I think the answer to that is yes in analysis, but you have to do it at the download. If you had downloaded it and downloaded it as an individual 2 files, Race Studio 2, as we are using it right now, cannot merge those 2 together, right? But if it's still on the logger and you tell it we want to link those 2 tests together when we download it, we can stitch those things together at that point, right? So we can do it there. Interesting question, but even if it's not, like I was going there for a minute, even if it's not together at that point, we can overlay the 2, right? And then with some snap mode and some other things, we can actually align the test where it kind of looks like is one test, and certainly see what happened in that time frame at the end of the one and the beginning of the other, which I assume is the biggest part for what Joe's interested in. What happened, and then when we took off, was everything okay? So we could actually analyze that section pretty good. Okay. You have another one there that he hasn't done yet?
Well, Steve, you touched base on it for Steve, actually, asking about Race Studio analysis and Google Earth imagery. We saw you exported it as it stands now. Like you said, it's not possible native to the software, but there is the export feature for the Google Earth file, which doesn't give you all the wants that I think we might see maybe now, with Race Studio 3 analysis.
Race Studio 3, when we're waiting, and never like to to push towards that, something you can't have right now, but just rest assured that that will be something that is coming, is upcoming, and you will have that at some point.
And for those who are unfamiliar with our software, and the newer units are all managed by Race Studio 3, and we use a software known as Race Studio Analysis that's what you're viewing here, to do the data in depth. Well, the new software, Race Studio 3, is going to have a companion update for Race Studio 3 Analysis, and that will be where some of the features we're talking about, some of the desires we are expecting to see in the new software.
And then Steve followed that up with a question of Race Studio 3 Analysis, ETA. He says Race Studio 3. Race Studio 3 is up and running. The only component that's not finished and available to you as users is the analysis piece, and the ETA of that is unknown by me. So we're working on it. We have development and beta versions that we're working with, and it's working. It's just when do we feel comfortable enough to release that. So that I do not have a great answer for you, Steve. We can, as it gets a little closer, I'm sure you'll start to hear that it's the analysis part is on its way out. So as of right now, I don't have anything for you. I see some were answered. You answered those in the answered tab, I suppose.
Yeah, there was a couple
more technical
personal
stuff
and
gotcha.
a little technical
Gotcha.
answers.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Robinson, you have anything else to add before we close it up?
No, I really don't. Like I said, just everyone who's a participant in the AXCC or elsewhere, off-road racing, our systems, like Andy said, are definitely becoming more popular. With that, we would like you to learn the unit yourself as well. We've shown you a good bit of benefit here in this seminar alone, but this is just a scratch of the surface. Obviously, feel free to reach back out to all of us direct in the AiM household, and we'll be glad to give you the assistance that you might be seeking.
Before I turn it over to you, Andy, I just brought up the last screen, which I'm going to show, and it's got my contact information. Boy, this is what I do is training and support, especially on the analysis side, on the software side. So if anybody is watching this later, anybody that's here live, boy, if you have some questions about your data, and we can get online, one-on-one, or you can share the data with me, or call me up and we can ask questions. My email address is here, roger@aimsports.com. Contact me, and more than happy to help as you're learning more about this. Like Robinson says, we want to make sure we want you to be as competent with it as possible, right? Because there's so much value there for you as a racer. So Andy, you have anything to close this all up with?
Well, I just want to say once again, thank you guys. Not just the racers that are on here, but AiM for doing this for us. It's definitely a way to get a leg up on your competition. And the biggest thing I see with this stuff is everybody always brings up the cost of it. And I tell everybody, I see guys buying a new bumper or doing this and spending $600 on a wheel, or something. And this right here is it's money in the bank, and I just appreciate you guys showing this, because I think the more people understand that it's more than just a GPS, it's going to make them so much better.
And we're here to help you get through that learning curve and figure it out and begin really to use this device the way it should be used as well. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. And again, I hope the riders understand, what it takes for you to do this, and Robinson to make the races and stuff. Yeah. So it's a big support from AiM. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Andy.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Thanks, everybody. Again, this will be turned into a PDF and emailed out to the email address that you left us. Anybody that's watching this taped, drop me an email note at roger@aimsports.com. I will send this presentation out to you, no problem whatsoever. And the video will be up on YouTube hopefully in the next next day or so, depending on how long it takes. So I appreciate it, everybody. We're going to end it here and stop the recording and look forward to doing maybe another one of these in the future for your group as well, Andy. So thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.